Hi, rather a serious topic today, and that is Ebola, the new strain. So why do I say a new strain? I'll go into that in a sec, but the main thrust of this is, would you actually survive being compulsorily quarantined? So why do I say a new strain? Well, here is the World Health Organization fact sheet on Ebola, and it's got here key facts. Severe, often fatal illness in humans, I think we know about that. Case fatality rate of up to 90%. That 90% figure is important to mention. And it says here that outbreaks occur primarily in remote villages in Central and West Africa. Well, we know that now is definitely wrong, with outbreaks occurring in cities. The virus is transmitted to people from wild animals and spreads in the human population through human-to-human transmission. Well, we kind of think that is wrong now, because it seems that the new Ebola is a new Ebola. It is a totally different animal. And there is some evidence now for air transmission, whether that be in droplets of moisture from people that are coughing or spitting and all the rest of it, or whether it's true air transmission. We don't yet know. In fact, we know very little about this new strain of Ebola. And it says here that fruit bats are considered to be the natural host of the Ebola virus. And if you say fruit bats, you're really talking about any small mammal. Now, if we look at USA Today's article, it says here, Ebola virus in Africa outbreak is a new strain. And it certainly is, because the lethality is only 60%. Now, why is this important? And this is important because it gives more time for the disease to spread. Now, it's a total mystery as to where this new virus came from. Total mystery. No one can prove anything. My own suspicion is that there is a US patent on altered Ebola viruses for use in making vaccinations, and let's say somebody wanted to test that on a population, they probably wouldn't do it in the USA, and we know these tests have gone on in the past. In fact, they've even gone on using American citizens in the 1960s. Without them being told. So perhaps a so-called deactivated virus has been produced, and it turned out to be rather more active than people thought. We don't know. But anyway, the whole thrust of this really is what's going to happen. And in the UK already we have several people quarantined at home. Why at home? Well, it turns out that in the UK we only have 2 isolation units. Now, I don't know how many there are in the States, but we've only got 2 really good isolation units, and the medics don't want these potentially terribly infectious people wandering around in their nice clean hospitals infecting everyone else, including the medics. And why do I say including the medics? Well, if we look at the people that have been repatriated who have been infected, some of them are medics with training in barrier nursing techniques and all the things that should keep Ebola at bay, yet they have still caught Ebola. Now, this tells us something about the possible transmission method. But still, this business of being quarantined at home is what's going to happen everywhere, and it's happening in Africa at the moment, where people are being forcibly kept in their homes at gunpoint. If the disease takes off in the States or any other large country, then obviously they're not going to be quarantining people in hospitals. They're going to be shutting you in to your own house. And if there's thousands or tens of thousands or God forbid millions of people under quarantine, that's going to be a big problem, because they may well be able to administer your quarantine by use of things like electronic tagging to make sure you stay where you are and come down and hunt you down if you don't. But what about food and water? Remember that Ebola quarantine lasts for a month. So what are you going to do in that time scale for medicine, especially if you've got some pre-existing condition such as diabetes, for food, and more importantly for water? And there's sanitation. One of the most terrible symptoms of Ebola, which may be how it's spreading at the moment, is through sanitation, because you have bloody diarrhea, you have bloody vomit to get rid of from inside your house, but you can bet your bottom dollar that they are going to block up your drain pipes so that whatever it is you're producing doesn't actually get into the main sewer and infect everyone else. So the question is, would you survive being quarantined? Look around your house now. Have you got 1 month's worth of all the medication you need on a regular basis? Have you got enough in the way of bottled water, if that's what you use? That's the most important thing. At the end of the day, if something like this happens, you may not be able to trust the water being kept on. So you may have drinkable main supply water, but is it going to stay connected? Because if enough people are quarantined, then the water supplies are going to fail. The sanitation is going to fail for the duration of the disease outbreak. Now, I'm going to say that food is a secondary consideration. Most people have got 3 or 4 days worth of food in their cupboard. Some people have more. Now, how long can a person survive without food? Well, we know that at the age of 74, Gandhi survived 21 days without food. And there are well documented cases of other hunger strikers surviving for 28, 36, 38, 40 days. So roughly, without food, you can go for a month. But you don't want to, do you? Especially considering you're ill, or you've been ill, which is why you've been quarantined. So you're going to want to have some food in, and I would suggest that you look at your cupboards now and make sure that you've got at least 20 days of like a normal supply of food, and that it's long term usable as well, like canned food, dehydrated food, and dehydrated food that's well stored, incidentally, not in some fancy perforated sack that moisture can get into and spoil it within a couple of months, which some of the high-end pastas and rices often are. And I'm going to suggest that you also plan for having around 1 gallon per day of bottled water. This will insulate you from everyone else's problem in the event of some sort of infection getting into the water supply from the sanitation system, and it also means that you're independent of what happens with your water supply. Because at the end of the day, they should only be quarantining you for 1 month. So you have to survive that 1 month with everything that's in your house. You think about what you normally do during a day, and don't forget things like keeping yourself entertained, because you don't want depression to set in, do you? So my question is this for you. Look around you, look at your home, look at what you normally do on a daily basis, or what you would normally do if you were stuck in your home, and ask yourself the question, would you survive quarantine for 1 month? If the answer is no, I would suggest that at the moment, the way things are going, that you need to do something about it, and do something about it urgently, before there's a problem. After all, what have you got to lose? If it doesn't happen, or if Ebola strikes and you're never quarantined, then that's fine. That food, that water you can use. But if it does happen and you don't have supplies, then you're in for a really miserable time. That's if you actually survive it. Anyway, I hope you like this video and you find it useful. If you do, please like and subscribe. Thank you very much.